Warland on the Eastern Front: Culture, National Identity, and German Occupation in World War I by Vejas Gabriel Liulevicius. Vejas Gabriel Liulevicius' Warland on the Eastern Front: Culture, National Identity, and German Occupation in World War I is a bold examination of German World War I Eastern Front occupation policies and is a brilliant piece of scholarship that casts light on an often neglected aspect of the war. Focusing primarily on the area of modern Lithuania, with areas of Latvia, Poland, and Belarus included, Liulevicius illustrates how Erich Ludendorff, the Eastern Front and then the German High Command Supremo, attempted to build a military utopian state. It was Ludendorff's hope that the Oberost, as the state was called, would be a model of German occupation policies throughout Europe. To this end, he brought all of the German scientific rationalization to the project that marked the training and methods of the German General Staff. The German army was meant to instill order among the natives and introduce German cleanliness to marginalize the filth and uncleanliness of Eastern Front peoples. German culture was required to be taught in schools, despite the fact that most native teachers had no German language training themselves. Movement was heavily policed, with the intent that the German army would monitor and control who went where. What men were left, the majority of 18 to 45-year-olds had been taken into the Russian army at the beginning of the war, were forced to work for the Germans. Liulevicius paints a picture of the Germans believing that the native population would eventually die out or move on, while the land itself would eventually be Germanified, helping to create autarky for the Reich. The reality of Ludendorff's policies, however, broke down when they met real-world problems. Anti-Semitism meant that the Germans marginalized a people who would ordinarily have been their natural allies. Brutal violence often met with natives who didn't show the proper respect to Germans on the street, and rape of native women was common. Native laborers were often worked to death. The German insistence on meticulous record-keeping and adherence to written orders meant that there was no allowance for the friction of daily life. The result, Liulevicius tells us, is a flawed occupation that never lived up to the potential that Ludendorff had dreamed for it. In the final chapters, Liulevicius shows how these policies were built upon and enlarged significantly by the Nazis in World War II. A very fine work of scholarship and an important book about the World War, Warland on the Eastern Front should be read by serious students of the war, as well as those hoping to understand the evolution of German occupation policies as they played out in World War II. Highly recommended.